Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Get to the Source with Dr. Marco. My name is Robert Allen, and I'm Dr. Marco's producer. And I will be here along with Dr. Marco and our guest tonight as we bring you this live webcast show with Dr. Marco. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things with you before we get started this evening, let you know how this is all going to work if this is your first time joining us. This is all about interactivity. We've got a great presentation planned for you with some amazing information. We knew this topic was going to be hot, but we didn't know it was going to be this hot. We've got a lot of people signing into the room right now, but we want to be here to answer your questions, and we're going to be taking the questions towards the end of the presentation. So we want you to submit them, and the way you do that is when you're on our event page, you'll see right below the video that you're watching right now, we have a chat box there. So just go ahead and click into that. It'll load up the chat interface, and you'll be able to ask your questions, make your comments right through that interface on the event page. So we hope that you'll have questions for us, but go ahead and ask those as soon as you have them. Just to let you know, we are live, but there is about a 60-second delay from when we ask for you to do things and from when you'll hear it. So in order to eliminate that delay, we'd like you to submit your questions as soon as they pop into your head. We're going to start off, actually, I'm going to load up one of our poll questions so that we can get an idea of who we have in the room with us tonight. And I'm going to bring that up right now. And that will appear right below the video screen on the event page. So we've got a lot of information to bring you this evening, and without any further ado, I want to bring in Dr. Marco to take us the rest of the way. How are you, Dr. Marco?
I'm great. How are you today?
Good. I'm really looking forward to the webinar tonight. We've got a fabulous guest. So why don't you let everyone know what they can expect this evening?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that thorough introduction. I know there's a lot of things happening on this screen, but I highly, highly suggest asking questions. You know, put in those questions, even if it's during our interview process. It's going to be answered at some point during this webinar, and Dr. Majors has some unbelievable information for you. So I'm excited to share this. And so, you know, to start off, we call this How to Be a Cancer Killer. Now, what the heck is a cancer killer? Well, this all started, my desire to do this webinar started when I came upon Dr. Majors' book, which he calls The Cancer Killers. I was just searching for some good books. I came about it. I'm somebody that loves to learn, and I'm always reading new things. And when I saw that book, I believe I read it in about 3 or 4 days. I couldn't put it down. It was such an easy read, and I'm not going to take his spotlight, but his story is quite unbelievable, and I can't wait till he shares it with you. I'm not going to take that away from him, but that's going to be our guest tonight. His name is Dr. Charles Majors. He is one of the authors of The Cancer Killers, and I can't even, you know, let you know how excited I am about this webinar. So, you know, tonight's goal, and this is a big goal because when people hear the word cancer, they automatically get into fear, and they start to think in their head, this is the beginning of the end. That's it. I'm done. And my goal by the end of the night, and I'm sure it's Dr. Major's goal as well, is to transform your understanding about what cancer is, how it develops, and how it can be reversed naturally. That's correct. You can reverse it naturally. Chemotherapy is not the only way to get rid of cancer, and you're going to learn a lot about that tonight. So that's my goal tonight. I hope I reach that with you. So who is Dr. Charles Majors? Let's get to the nitty-gritty. He is a chiropractor by profession. He's a doctor of chiropractic, but he is also the co-author of 3 books. He's the co-author of Maximized Living Makeover, Cruise Ship or Nursing Home, I like that name, and then finally The Cancer Killers, The Cause is the Cure. That's him right there holding his book. He's also at the bottom of your screen. We're going to learn a lot about him tonight. We're going to learn more about cancer than you ever thought you would. So, you know, what I want to start off with is a little bit of what I've been kind of throwing out at Facebook and the social media is there's a certain environment that cancer cells thrive on in our body. And I want to go over briefly that environment because it's very important to understand, because when you hear about this environment, you're going to realize that the American diet and the American lifestyle that we're living now sets us up to have these problems in the future, but you don't know it because it may not come for 10, 20, 15, 30 years. So the environment that these cancer cells thrive in is, number one, it thrives on sugar. It needs sugar to survive. So if you think about the diets a lot of us have, a lot of the diets that we have are high in carbohydrates, high in sugars, processed foods. All of those things are going to have you develop a lot of sugar inside of your body, and these cancer cells are just going to love that, and they're just going to want to thrive on that. So that's one thing that people are going to, the cancer cells are going to thrive on. The next thing is a highly acidic environment, which that same diet that I was just telling you about also creates a lot of acidity in our body. So you're going to have these high sugars, then you're going to have this acidic environment, and those cancer cells are just going to love it. They're going to have a party in there. The last thing that they really thrive on is a low oxygenated environment. Now, how do you have low oxygen in the body? One of the best ways is to stay inactive, to have a low oxygen environment. So the goal for me and you is to start to be active. You know, we're in a lifestyle now where people are more willing and more likely to sit in the front of the TV, in front of the computer, or in front of their tablets than to be outside doing things like doing the lawn or going to the gym or taking walks. So we're more apt to have less activity, and that's going to cause these cancer cells to develop as well. So that's what I call the cancerous environment, and it really is going to help us, not help us, but help the cancer cells grow, and we don't want that to happen. So I wanted to kind of give that understanding to you, so that you are on the same page as Dr. Majors and us and I, because it's going to make a lot more sense when I have Dr. Majors explain a lot of what he's gone through and what he recommends for his patients. So I have about 6 to 7 questions that I personally think would be great for the viewers to see, as well as I'm just curious from Dr. Majors as well. So the first thing I want to start off with, though, is I would like Dr. Majors to share his story about what happened to him and how it got him to the point where he's at right now. So Dr. Majors, first of all, welcome to our show. I'm extremely excited to have you here.
Thanks, Dr. Marco, for even doing this show. So how did I get to that point? So I would say at one point I was having severe headaches, no clue what it was. I was getting adjusted, the headaches would go away. I was getting sicker and sicker. I was passing out. I couldn't work at all. Things were getting worse. I literally was diagnosed with Lyme disease at that time, and I was doing some natural protocols, getting better, but still, all of a sudden, headaches were coming back, still passing out. Finally, I had a recommendation to get an MRI, and pretty much the whole time I knew that something was desperately wrong. I was trying to stay in denial. Got an MRI around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they said they'd let me know by the morning, what they found. I came home. I pretty much slept, 15, 16 hours a day. Very, very rarely was awake because I was always passing out. So it was around 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I woke up with my wife and my son on top of me, and they were both crying. And this is only a few hours later. I just had an MRI. So I'm thinking, well, there's no way those results are back yet. It usually takes a day. Well, because of what they found on the MRI, they called my wife immediately and they said, your husband has 4 tumors in the brain, 2 were by the brainstem and 2 were by the eyes. They said it's crushing his spinal cord. They didn't know how I was still alive because it was stopping the spinal fluid from going into my body. They said get him to immediately to Northwestern. They had somebody that they recommended, and pretty much from there we got in a car, drove to Northwestern, one of the top hospitals. I think the doctor I had was like number 3 neurosurgeon in the world. I was recommended to, and as soon as you get there, I mean, it's probably about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Severe headache still. The great thing about conventional medicine is they can get rid of pain very good. So they said, here's what we're going to do. Immediately, they took a drill, literally, and you would think that it's some amazing drill. It literally looks like a drill you put through this cabinet right here. And they literally, they took a drill that went right down into my head, went right down into my brain, and put a hole there. They took a tube, put it down inside of there, and immediately they started draining the fluid out of my brain. I felt, the first time in probably 6 months, I felt good because they were getting the spinal fluid out of there. They looked at the radiologist, the actual neurosurgeon wasn't there yet, but they said, well, he's coming in the morning. I was there overnight. He came in the morning. He held up my MRIs, went up and looked at it all. He said, yep, you're young. You look healthy. He said, not an issue. We're going to do surgery in about a week. You're going to have to do preparation stuff, but not an issue. We'll be able to get it out of there. So we were thinking, I was going into a brain surgery. I was a little nervous, but at that point, he was very confident. A week later, after a miserable week of testing and rods being poked inside of me and holes inside of my body testing me, I went in to have the brain surgery done to pull the tumors off the spinal cord and on the eyes. He said could be anywhere between 8 to 12 hour surgery. Well, it took about 3 hours later, and they already pulled me out of there, and I didn't know I was out. When I woke up to a tube stuck in my throat because I couldn't breathe, I couldn't eat, I couldn't do anything, and everyone around me it looked like someone died in the room, and I thought everyone would be happy because I just got out of surgery, I was alive, I woke up. They didn't think I was going to wake up, so they didn't tell me anything. They must have waited like 2 days to tell me the bad news. They finally came in and told me that unfortunately they couldn't get any of the tumors out of my brain. They went up there though, if you guys can see the scar. They went up there. He got inside of there. He cut on the first tumor. It bled all over the brain, and he got out of there immediately. And at that point, he walked into the room where my wife was, Dr. Ben Lerner, who wrote the book with me, a bunch of the other doctors, and he said, the neurosurgeon said, I don't think he's going to wake up in the morning. This isn't benign. It's cancer. It's all over his brain. I had to cut into it. I didn't know, and it spread all over his brain. He may not wake up in the morning. So that's what my wife was left to. I woke up, thank God. Then they told me that it was even worse than that. They said it wasn't brain cancer. They said it's coming from somewhere in your body. We don't know where, but it's metastasized to your brain. And we're going to do the next 2 days, we're going to test to find out where it is. So they must have done from CAT scans to MRIs, nothing. They couldn't find cancer anywhere. They did blood tests, you name it. Finally, they said it must be coming from your bone marrow. They did a bone marrow where they literally drill into your bone marrow. They pull out a piece of your bone marrow. They test it. And over almost 40% of my blood was making cancer 24 hours a day. And they said this cancer went up to my brain. What they said is never in history have they ever had someone with this type of cancer, which ended up being diagnosed as a multiple myeloma, which is a bone marrow cancer. They said this cancer always goes to the bones, breaks the bones, fractures the bones, cracks the bones. In this case, they said whatever you were doing, whatever way you were living, they said stop this from going anywhere else, and only could go to your brain. So that was whatever I was doing was at least keeping out of my bones, but it went to my brain. They walked in, they said there's no cure. I mean, come on, it's a late stage metastasized cancer that's all over my body and in my brain. There's no cure. they said there's nothing more we could do except for chemotherapy to minimize some of this tumor, some radiation, or we could do a bone marrow transplant. You're young, that'll buy you some time. All it would do is buy me some time. It was incurable. There was nothing they could do. At that moment, I said, there's probably nothing you can do, but I'll guarantee there's a lot I can do. And so I didn't want a cure. I wanted to know what caused this. Something had to cause this. 10 years ago, this cancer wasn't there. 20 years ago, this cancer wasn't there. 30 years ago, this cancer wasn't there. So something had to transform my body into letting this cancer live. Something created and caused this. I had to figure out what caused this. I didn't need a cure. I needed to find the cause. That I didn't care that they said there was no cure. That was fine with me because they told me there was 1,000,000 to 1 chance possibly that I was going to make it through that. You know what? I was going to be that one person then. And so at that point we told them no thank you. I didn't want chemotherapy and radiation. That was my choice at the time. To me, I was, just so you know, I weighed 165 when I got in the hospital around. 2.5 weeks later after diagnosis, I was 118 pounds in a wheelchair. I had a tube in my stomach. I couldn't speak at all, very barely speak because of all the damage to my throat. Feeding tube to feed me, and I was in a wheelchair. At that point, I knew I was sick. That the cancer didn't make me sick. My sickness over time created this cancer. That my sickness created this cancer. That I've been sick for years. The cancer doesn't show up in a healthy body. It shows up in a sick body. That if all I do is get rid of the cancer, I'm still sick. Plus, if at that point, being 118 pounds in a wheelchair, and now you're going to put chemotherapy, radiate me, and do a bone marrow transplant, there was no way my opinion was, and they thought too, there was no way I was making it through there. So I knew to get out of there. I remember the first day of diagnosis, I unfortunately opened up the internet and went on and plugged in multiple myeloma, and it said incurable, horrible death and fractures all over the body, not curable. I got off there immediately, and I realized that if I was going to fight this and beat this, I had to surround myself and had to fill my brain with things that were going to make me stronger, not weaker. And seeing that made me weaker. Seeing people around me that were thinking the same thing made me weaker. That I had to get rid of all those things. And so I left the hospital then. The neurosurgeon even agreed. The neurosurgeon wasn't an oncologist, wasn't going to make any money off of chemotherapy and radiation. He agreed. He said, I agree. Go search for whatever you need to do and get out of it. So I left there and went in search and began tons and tons of research. Flew to Reno, Nevada. I've been to Spain. I've been all over. And I've got to study with some of the best oncologists in the world right now and learn protocols. I've been now reading. I probably do 2 to 3 hours a week, from different seminars to readings to everything on cancer, finding out. My goal is whenever I'm working or helping a cancer patient, because our job, and even Dr. Marco right now, we don't cure cancer. Our job is number one, the only cure is never getting it in the first place. That's the only cure. But our job is number one is to help you get healthier so your body can no longer be in this position. Our job is health, right? Not curing something, because if we just get rid of the cancer, you're still sick to begin with. So that's where my journey led to. And so right now, in 6 more weeks, 8 more weeks, it'll be 4 years I was diagnosed. So I'm going on to 4 years later.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for that story. I mean, just listening to that story gives me chills, and the fact that you went from weeks to living according to the traditional medical model to now sitting here with us 4 years later, stronger as ever, and being able to teach this to others is just unbelievable, and is part of the reason, or maybe the main reason, why I invited you on this show. And I appreciate your time here. I know you're a busy man, so I want to just continue on with this because there's so many questions that I have for you, and I'm sure there's so many questions that the audience has for you. But I know in discussions with you and after reading your book, the number one thing I think a lot of people don't understand about cancer is what the heck cancer is. So, briefly, do you mind sharing with us what actually is cancer and what are cancerous cells?
Well, yeah. So and the key is, and with any cancer patient I meet with, is the first thing they have to recognize, I always ask them, do you know what this cancer is? And I'll have a patient who's been, cancer twice, has been through the whole, chemotherapy, radiation, sick again. No one's ever sat down with them and told them what cancer is. How are you ever going to reverse something if you don't know what it is? Or how are you ever not going to get it, or your children not get it, when 1 out of 2 and 1 out of 3 people are getting it right now? That's the scary thing, if you don't even know what it is. So yes, it's very important. Number one is we know what it is. And I'm going to keep it dumbed down. I always say I like to dumb it down, not because you're dumb, because for me, I like things to be simple and easy, because that's how simple cancer. Does cancer have to be that difficult? We assume it has to be difficult. And the more difficult medicine makes this, then the more you need them. That's why they make it so difficult. But here it is. So all you are is cells. That's it. From your bones to your organs to your eyes to your nose to your spine to your everything is nerves. All you are is nerves. Depending on how big you are, between 70 to 100 trillion cells you're made of. That's it. All you are is cells. Every single one of your cells has a cell life. Every one of your cells has a genetic programming. When they talk about genes, every cell has a genetic programming. And every cell has a program which is called programmed death, which is apoptosis, which means every cell is programmed to eventually die. Cells don't live for 120 years. Our cells grow and die for 120 years. Every cell in the body, proven by Leonard Hayflick in the cell effect from Harvard, proved that the cells should be growing and dying, growing and dying, growing and dying. They're programmed genetically between 80 to 120 years. You weren't programmed for 30 years in cancer. You weren't programmed for 15 years in Crohn's disease. You weren't programmed for those things. You were programmed for health. And so these cells are programmed to grow and die, grow and die, grow and die. It's called apoptosis. Cancer is when these cells no longer die. So when the cell doesn't die, then it replicates itself abnormally. So now we have a mirror imaging of a cell, mirror imaging, and they begin to replicate themselves abnormally. So that's what cancer is. It starts with one cell, goes into 2, goes into 4, goes into 8, goes into 16, and begins to grow. So cancer is nothing more than cells that no longer die and they're replicating. They're abnormal cells that are replicating abnormally. There's nothing about, and I love this talking to a cancer patient, I don't care if you have 5 days to live, there's nothing about the cancer cell that can kill you. And that's when people just get relief right there. They can't kill you. It's just an abnormal cell. It's only if they got too big, like with me, but think about it, I had it all over my body, it was in my blood, it was in my brain. The only reason it was affecting me is because it was so big, it was crushing my spinal cord. Otherwise, I could have kept going on. So, number one is cancer is nothing more than cells that are no longer dying and they're replicating abnormally. So if we talk about genes, which you hear genetically, yes, genetically there's what's called the P53 gene. That is the gene that's responsible for apoptosis. And when this gene goes haywire, these cells don't know to die anymore. So when doctors say this is a gene mutation, it has to do with genes, they're right in one sense, but it's more or less to do with the P53 gene, which is responsible to keep these cells from growing and dying, growing and dying. What's interesting is that's what we're going to go through, there are so many things in nature. There are so many ways to keep this P53 gene from shutting itself off and keeping it on. And vitamin D3 is one of those in the sun that God put there and different things. But in general, cancer is nothing more than cells that replicate themselves abnormally. Now, from there, which is really interesting, is that I teach 3 steps. So step 1 is you have to stop making this cancer first. That's step 1. Stop making it. I don't care if a patient walks into me in stage 4 cancer. As long as it never gets any worse, they can live like that another 20, 30, 40, whatever age they are, 50 years, right? I was just turning, a little over 40. I could have lived another 60 years as long as that cancer never got any bigger. I would probably be, passing out 12 hours a day, but I was living as long as the cancer doesn't get any bigger. So step 1 is we don't need a cure. We need you to stop making the cancer. You made it, you caused it, you created it, it's your fault. So if you just stop making it, you can stay in stage 4 or stage 3. I have so many people, met so many people who are in stage 4, go into stage 1 and end up dying in stage 1, and stage 4 they are still alive. Because you can live a long life with cancer. You can live with this cancer. Everyone who's listening to me right now has cancer in their body. There's different stages, right? In America, we don't stage it until stage 1, but other countries have negative stages. And they'll have a -4 or -3 or -2 or -1. And most of the people who are listening to me probably right now, even your children, are probably a -4. We all have a certain amount of cancer. We have an immune system that's strong enough that helps keep this under control. We have this P53 gene that keeps killing these cells off. So if our body's functioning and working normally, every day cancer is showing up between 1,000 and 10,000 cancer cells we have in our body. And so the key is you have to have the environment that, number 1, keeps it from growing. Then number 2 is you keep killing it. And so you have to stop making it. But also you have to understand that the cancer is nothing more, and this is the hard part for people with cancer, is it's nothing more than a survival mechanism. It's keeping you alive. This is the hardest thing for someone to recognize, that it's not there to kill you. As hard as because if cancer dies, or if you die, cancer dies. Why would it want to kill you? It's done. It can't live, right? Its job isn't to kill you. Its job is to keep you alive. Just like right now, I'm in a room right now, right? Or Dr. Marco's in a room. So Dr. Marco, if I closed that room up and I started a fire in the room and didn't let you out, immediately what would happen to your blood pressure? Would it go up or down?
Up.
It would go up. What would happen to your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up, your hormones are going crazy, your stress hormones, your fight or flight is up. Is your immune system getting stronger or weaker during stress?
Weaker.
Getting weaker. So right now, if I was able to measure your cancer, you're building cancer faster right now because you're in a stressful environment, right? You're fighting this, right? Your cholesterol's rising right now. Your cortisol's rising. All these things are rising, right? Your bowels are a mess. You have irritable bowel syndrome right now. You have all these issues. And so if I took you out of that room and measured all this, you have irritable bowel syndrome, you have cancer building in your body, you have high blood pressure right now, you have cholesterol issues. Is that genetic, or is your body adapting to the stress I just put you under?
Definitely
your body's adapting. Every symptom is the body doing the right thing at the right time. Trust me on this. The body's not dumb. It doesn't go haywire. They want to tell you, hey, cancer's genetic mutation, or if your body's going haywire, it's bad luck. Well, if you think it's bad luck and you think it's genetic, you have no control. You need me. You need me. So you'll spend $200,000 or $300,000 finding the cure, right? So if I can have you convinced it's genetic, if I have you convinced it's bad luck and not your fault, then if you don't think you're in control of this, then you're not going to fix this. So it's a survival mechanism, just like you being in the room. So why does your blood pressure go up? So your heart rate goes up so you can fight and get out of that room right now, right? Why do you think cholesterol rises? Does anyone know why cholesterol rises? Because do people get cholesterol as they get older or younger? As they get older, cholesterol goes up. Why? Because what hormone goes down as they get older? Testosterone. So why do men have more cholesterol issues? Because their hormones are a mess, and their cholesterol goes up to make more hormones. That every symptom is the body doing the right thing. And that's the same with cancer. So you have normal, healthy cells of your body. So if you look right now, I'm going to show you my hand. Right now, my hand is pretty clear right now. I don't have any calluses on my hand at all. But Dr. Marco, if I exercised every day and I damage this skin and damage this skin and damage this skin and damage this skin and damage this skin, my body is going to do what to this? Create what?
Going to create those calluses.
It's going to create a callus. Is that good or bad? It's good because if my body didn't create a callus, the weights I'm holding, the bar, would go through my hand and cut into my bone. So my body says, hey, I got to protect you right now, and it protects it by putting calluses. It changes a normal cellular structure into a protective cellular structure. This is proven that cancer is a survival mechanism. It's the body trying to survive in the environment it's in. Just like my body's forming calluses. Just like the sun doesn't cause cancer, the sun burning you repetitively can cause cancer. So if I have the sun beating on me, 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 burning my skin, burning my skin, burning my skin, Dr. Marco, what does my body have to do to protect itself? It has to turn into what? It has to change its what? It has to change its cellular structure. The body's not dumb. It will change when it needs to change. Cancer is the body trying to survive in that environment Dr. Marco just talked about. Is trying to survive in the environment. I can kill the cancer off, right? I can kill the cancer off, but if I still have the environment, the sickness that caused it, if I just take your cancer out, what are you left with? You're left with that sick body. So what comes back? In majority of everyone who has it done, the cancer comes back. So the key is getting to the cause. Something caused your body to go from normal healthy cells into these cancer cells and wouldn't allow it to go. So step one is we got to figure out what caused it, get you to stop making it, change your environment. That's step one. Then we move into step two, which is now you decide how you want to kill it. That's part two. If you decide you want to use chemotherapy and radiation and surgery, that's step two. Because again, I can remove your breast, remove your ovaries, I can take everything out of you. You don't get a hormone cancer because you have hormone organs. You get a hormone cancer because you have too many hormones in your body, too much estrogen. The progesterone and estrogen's out of balance. Estrogen grows things, progesterone slows it down. So if I have too much estrogen, it doesn't matter if you cut both my breasts off, right, and cut off a woman's uterus, you still get cancer because your hormones are out of balance. Yeah, because guess what? Your thyroid will get it. Guess what else will get it? Other organs that have fat cells on them, because fat attracts estrogen. And I can go on and on, but the point is that step two is you kill it, and now you figure out, now if somebody wants to do it through chemotherapy and radiation, great. Then you make sure that you're protecting your body, following all the protocols. I wrote up a whole entire protocols with me and Dr. Hilu out of Spain, how to protect someone when they're going through that, how to maximize the benefits of chemo, because there are some benefits, and there's so many negative things, that how to minimize the negative effects of radiation and during surgery. And if they're going to not do either of those things, then they're going to do then ozones or PEMP machines or all the stuff we're going to talk about, IV vitamin C. There's all kinds of things, but that's step two. Step three then is they have to rebuild and re-strengthen this immune system back up, because if their immune system was strong enough, it would maintain this cancer in the first place. So I don't know. I went a little long there. Sorry about that.
No, that actually that included a lot of the next questions that I was going to ask. But it's great. I mean, those top three steps are extremely important for somebody to understand. And what I like that you mentioned is that it's okay if they choose chemotherapy, but they have to choose chemotherapy after their environment is ready to handle it. You know, and that's what a lot of people, you know, think chemo is the only thing that they could do. But like you said, you could take the cancer out, but if the environment's the same, it's just going to come right back. So the fact that, you know, some people might think, you know, there's no way I'm going to go through cancer without chemo. Well, that's great. If you want to do the chemo, that's good, but let's change the environment first, get you back to where you should be, then let's do the chemo. But I remember reading in your book, and this is kind of going to go a little bit off what I planned, but I remember reading in your book you were saying that there were other tests that you could do to find out if there's a certain chemotherapy for the specific cancer that you have. Can you briefly explain that?
Yeah, and that goes back to, if someone's going to decide they're going to do chemotherapy, number one, they have to understand that it is guesswork. They are making the best, and they are, I mean, come on, your oncologists are amazing. They are smart, brilliant people. There's no question. But they don't control what happens to you. They don't control that, right? They are doing what is in textbook. So if you have, let's say, lung cancer, they're going to go into a book and say, okay, we had a 47% success rate with this type of chemo, so we're going to use this one because the next best was 22%, right? It's based upon lung cancer. It's based upon testicular. It's not based upon you. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's metabolism is different. Everybody's environment is different. So chemo has an ability to kill fast, rapidly growing cells, and that's what cancer is. Remember, they're fast, rapidly growing. They're growing out of control. So it has an effect on that. It can kill that if it's the right chemo at the right time in the right place, right? But again, I can take out all your cancer even with chemo. Now you're left sicker. You got to get your body healthy from the cancer in the first place, and you got to fight that, get yourself healthy from the chemo. Chemo never, just listen to this. Chemo may destroy some cancer cells. It never touches the stem cell. Never. Chemo will never, ever touch a stem cell. That's where the cancer began at, right? Because that's where this gene mutates, or that's where the cellular change. Ask your doctors, does this affect the stem cells? The answer is absolutely not. In order to get to cancer, you have to get to the stem cell. And chemo doesn't do it. It can help minimize, absolutely. Surgery can help minimize the tumor load. Chemo could help minimize the tumor load. Radiation can help minimize the tumor load. And I've seen it in cases where it's actually, then the immune system, as long as they're getting it stronger, the immune system can work, and all of a sudden the immune system can go in there and work better. So there are times if somebody's doing the right things. Again, I don't recommend they do it or not do it. That's Dr. Marco and I, whether somebody does chemotherapy or radiation, that has nothing to do. Our job is to let's get you as healthy as possible if you decide to do it or not do it. That's kind of the key there. But again, but when you're doing chemo, there's also testing. There's what's called chemo sensitivity testing. And that's done, there's a company called RCGC out of RGCC. There's different companies, genetic companies, one's out of Greece. Even California, they do some of this stuff, where they literally take the cancer cells and they test your cancer cells. They literally, exaggerating it a little bit, but they literally drop your cancer cells in all different chemos, then they measure how much of that cancer cell died in each one of those chemos. Pretty cool stuff. So then they know, they say, okay, vincristine, which is a form of chemo, it killed your cancer cells 76% versus a different one. Why do you think they give you 3 chemos most of the time? Because they don't know which one's going to work. So they give you 3. Don't guess, test. I always teach that. Don't guess, test, right? Then if somebody wants to do chemo, the best way to do it would be to do it in a fractionated amount. And to trick it. Cancer is amazing because it has a trick, like Dr. Marco talked about. It's a glucose metabolizer. Cancer is a glucose metabolizer. It uses fermentation for its energy source. It uses sugar. We all know that. Dr. Marco just talked about it. A new study just came out. Fred Hutchinson's Cancer Center, those of you who saw it or saw my Facebook, they took over a 5-year study. They studied people who were drinking 24 ounces of sugary drinks. Listen to this. It didn't matter if it was a Gatorade thing. It doesn't matter if it's juice boxes. It doesn't matter if it's fruit juices, sodas. 24 ounces of sugary drinks. If you did that over a 5-year period, your cancer increased 67%. So when an oncologist tells you it doesn't matter what you eat, he's lying or he doesn't know these studies, right? Here's how I know he's lying because when they did your CAT scan, what did they inject you with first before they did a CAT scan? They inject you with glucose. Why? They inject you with radioactive glucose because the radioactive glucose goes right to the cancer cells and lights up like a Christmas tree on that CAT scan. So if they tell you it doesn't matter what you eat, you better run the other way because it does matter what you eat. I wouldn't be here right now if it didn't matter what I ate and how I lived my life. So it does matter what you eat. It does matter what your environment is, and you are in control of that. So if someone's going to do chemo, there are ways to protect it. There are ways to test it. And I would make sure that, someone gets cancer, like I would research, go to more doctors, and do everything you possibly can because there are answers out there. And that's what I did, and I went and found them.
Excellent.
I want to just jump in quickly. We've got just a couple of questions. If we want to just grab those real quick. Let me. The first was just what you were talking about earlier, Dr. Majors. How did you have the strength to start this regimen at only 118 pounds?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm telling you, the hardest part about this is your mind. You're in your mind. Your spouse, your relative, or somebody, your friend, they're beaten in the mind first. Only 75% of this is mind. I'm telling you right now, it's mind. Right? There's 3 things that I teach whenever I meet with a cancer patient. You can do whatever you want, but here's the 3 things when it comes to mindset. Number 1, that you have to understand and you have to believe that your behavior matters, that you can make a difference. You have to believe 100% that you're in control. The outcome is going to be controlled by you. And if you don't believe that and that your behavior doesn't matter, it's going to be hard to change this. That's number 1. Number 2, who you're around, what you're reading, who you hang out with. If there's somebody around you who's negative during this and doesn't think you're going to make it and is talking down whatever you decide, I don't care if you choose chemo and radiation. If around you telling you it's the wrong thing, you stay away from them, right? Because Listen, if you think it's not going to work, it's probably not going to work as well. That's a fact. That's been proven through placebos. If you think it works, it's going to work 10 times better. So don't go down the middle. Don't think chemo radiation is going to kill me. I'm scared. I'm going to do it anyway. Or you go the other way. I'm going to go the natural way, and that's going to kill me. You're probably not going to make it no matter what you figure out what you want to do. You set a plan up. Relax. You're not going to die tomorrow when you get diagnosed. Trust me. No one dies the next day. It's very rare. You have time. Put a plan together. That's what we do first. We get a plan put together. Step one is stop making it. We work on the mindset. What needs to happen? Getting all the tools in order. The people you're around, the things you're reading, everything changes. So that's number two. Number three is that some people see this stress and this as a challenge. And some see it like I did as an opportunity, right? That I saw this as a blessing, not a curse. I saw this as one of the greatest things that's ever going to happen to me. Because I wouldn't, right now, I wouldn't be saving thousands and thousands of lives. I wouldn't have sold hundreds of thousands of books if this wouldn't have happened to me. That I knew in the moments when I was diagnosed, I knew in those moments that this was going to be the changing of my life. I'm going to go and change the world. My goal, if you see my vision boards are all around me, my goal is to make a difference and change the world, right? And, well, this was it right here, right? That's what God wanted for me. He didn't give me cancer, but what the devil did for evil, he did for good. So the reality is that number three is a person who gets through cancer sees stress as a challenge. They see stress as an opportunity. They don't see it as negative. And if you can get somebody through that, number one, they have to believe they're in control. They have to believe that this isn't bad luck and genetic and everything else. They have to believe that this is my fault. I created it, and because I created it, I can change this. Number two, you got to get rid of everything that's going to pull you away, everything and anything. And you got to be focused every single day on the healing and the possibility of the body, how amazing this healing is. Because if I came there right now and cut your arm right now, it would heal. So if your brain can heal that cut, it can heal this cancer. That's a fact. Your brain can heal the cut, it can heal anything on your body as long as there's no interference there. And so if your brain can run your heart right now, then why can't it heal your cancer? The same brain that's running your heart can heal your cancer as long as there's no interference there. So number three is you got to see it as the greatest gift that's going to happen to you. I sat with a 15-year-old girl with lymphoma, and hard as it was on them, mom's crying, dad was sitting there, grandma's crying, and I looked at her. First thing I asked her, and I had to go to their home for this because she was very sick, I said, tell me what the greatest thing about cancer is. You can imagine her father, like, what are you doing here? Ask me. I want to know right now what's the greatest thing about this. And she perks up and she says, you really want to know? And I said, yeah. She goes, my father has been here for 2 straight weeks with me, the first time in 2 years. He starts crying. Mom is crying because it brought everyone closer together. Tell me what's happening now. She goes, my family, my brother came in from out of the country. The family right now, my mom's lost in 2 weeks. Her mom lost 9 pounds because they changed their diet. Their dad's around home. He stopped working as much. Her whole life has come together. This was 3 years ago that this girl's still alive, 18 years old now or 19 years old. Why? Because she saw it as, every day she woke up, she diaried what's great about this cancer, what's amazing about this cancer, that it's a mindset, that it's there to wake you up. It's there to make you realize what are you missing in your life. People would come up to me and say, you know what, I feel so bad, I'm so sorry, and I'd say, oh, no, I'm sorry for you, because you'll never get what I got. You'll never see your family how I see my family. You'll never get to see your spouse how I see my spouse. You'll never see what I see in my life. You'll never get to see that every moment in my life now, I don't miss it. It's the most greatest thing in the world because I had that opportunity, and most people don't see it through their whole lifetime. So that answer your question? It starts with mindset, starting with what's going to be the greatest thing that ever happened here. I remember I was so weak, my wife would put me on a bike, a stationary bike, and all I could do was ride. But I forced myself every day to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Eventually went from a stationary bike onto a treadmill. From there I moved. But I started the day I got out of the hospital, I began exercising. You know, the day I got out, even when I was there, I was walking the halls, I had tubes coming out of my head because I knew I had to get strong, no matter what.
It's great. Riveting stuff, I got to tell you. One more quick question here. What about stem cell research? Does that have an impact on helping cure cancer?
Again, we have to figure out the stem cell would not change unless the environment. Remember, We think things are genetic, but what you have to search is epigenetics. Epigenetics is above the gene, that we're way above the gene. Our genes are turned on or off, just like a loaded gun. We turn them off like a light switch. We know that now. The stem cell, whether or not we have bad genes, we all have bad genes, we all have good genes and bad genes, it's whether or not you turn that gene on or off. The gene will turn on, but that gene can also turn off again. Why, if it was genetic, why'd you get it at 33 instead of why didn't you get it at 23? You had that gene since you were born, right? Because you finally turn the gene on. The great news is about stem cells and genes and everything else, you can turn those things off. You can turn them off. That is proven in research now. Again, if somebody wants to go through and do stem cell research and change, again, that's what kind of like a bone marrow transplant is too. They're trying to do all these different stem cell research and bone marrows. Again, you didn't get cancer because you were healthy. You got it because you were sick. The stem cells shifted over into this cancerous environment, so you have to change your environment first. And then if you want to do that as step 2, that's fine. But again, show me the research proving it long-term, the side effects of it, what happens, right? I know the long-term effects of vitamin C when I do my IV vitamin Cs. I know my long-term effects. I know all that. I know the quality of life I have right now versus the quality of life I had 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago. And for me, that's enough. So I'm not telling everybody to do what I did. All I'm telling people to do is that research it, study it, follow step number 1 before you do anything.
Excellent. Excellent response. Another question, Robert?
That's all I had for the moment here.
Okay, so so I have a question for you, just based on everything you're saying. I mean, now I'm just going, off the whim from everything you've just said has just been mind blowing, and every question I was going to ask you basically answered. But the one thing I wanted to ask you was, do you mind sharing, because a lot of people, like I said earlier, think that you have to do chemo and, all that stuff. What are some of the protocols that you do for step 1 before they get to step 2? So they have an understanding on, like, what they have to prepare for when they get this cancer. Because they're going to hear the doctor say, I'm sorry to say this, but you have cancer. And their mind's going to go 100 miles an hour thinking 10,000 different things. If they calm down and relax and kind of do what you said, think of this as, something that's not a bad stress, but as a good stress. What are some of the things that they're going to go through in step 1 to get to step 2?
Okay, so number 1 is let's just take every cancer has a different major causal factor. I don't know if that makes sense. Every cancer has a different causal factor. Let's just take, for example, somebody has an immune cancer like a leukemia. So if you look at a leukemia is an increase of leukocytes, right? That's what leukemia is, an increase of leukocytes. Leukocytes are part of the white blood cells. So Dr. Marco, from what we learned in all our school, why would white blood cells get out of control and be raised? What's going on in the body, probably? So if you saw blood work that had crazy white blood cells, what would you think is going on? They have what?
There's some type of
infection. So something's going on in the body. The immune system is responding. Leukocytes are, and this is interesting, I do so many leukemia, children with leukemia or adults, and I'm like, do you know what a leukocyte is? They don't even know what that is. They have leukemia, it's been 6 months, they don't even know what a leukocyte is. Leukocytes are white blood cell. Why would it be increased? Because it's trying to fight off some type of infection, right? Some type of lymphoma. Why would the lymphatics be affected? Myeloma, which I had, those are increase of myelocytes, which is part of the white blood cells, and on and on. So the first thing we do is we don't guess, we test. Again, I don't cure cancer. I'm telling people, well, you got to test. So number 1, so let's take stomach cancer. We know there's certain things that create the underlying environment more often in stomach cancer. Number 1 is H. pylori. H. pylori is a major bacteria in the stomach, and it's one of the major causes that. Now, one thing doesn't cause cancer. Cancer is a perfect storm. It's many things. It's many things that have built up over time. It's never one thing. But we want to eliminate everything around the perfect storm there that created this. So when we look at a stomach cancer, we look at H. pylori. We need to do H. pylori testing. Number 2 is when we look at stomach cancer, we're looking at something had to have happened that's creating a non-stop inflammatory effect, just like in an immune cancer. An immune cancer, there's something. Why is the immune system working all the time? An infection? Why is an immune system working all the time? Food sensitivities, right? Food sensitivity is when the immune system is attacking the food, and you don't know it, but your bowels are a little bit irritated, but it's happening 24 hours. GMOs do this. GMOs destroy your immune system because they build it up. Grains, all these different things can affect it. Glutens, dairies on certain people, whatever it is. So we do the proper testing. A test for H. pylori with this type of person with stomach cancer. Do an IgG food sensitivity test. I always do vitamin D3 testing because we know when someone has an 80 to 90 nanograms of in a blood test of D3, their chance of cancer is way more reduced. We know that there has to be a toxicity issue, just like in kidney cancers and liver cancers, that some toxicity had to go through. It's a filter system, right? The kidneys are a filter system. Something had to filter through the kidney or the liver to build up this protective measure. So we look at running first. You got to find out what one of the underlying causes is. So we do all the right testing first. Now you can get a plan set up, whatever it is. If it's a hormonal cancer, I don't know how many hormonal cancers I ask them, tell me what your hormonal test is. Send me your hormone test. They're like, well, what do you mean? They never did one. So you don't know what your estrogen levels are, your progesterone, your cortisol levels are, your thyroid levels are. You don't know any of that. You have a hormone cancer that's positive, yet you don't even know where the levels are. Well, they're giving me tamoxifen, so that's supposed to help my estrogen levels. Yeah, but you're going to guess? You have an estrogen-driven cancer, and you're guessing whether or not it's working? We measure. We run a hormone panel, and then you can get those hormones back into normal amounts. How do we get the hormones back into normal amounts? Well, the liver. The job of the liver is methylation. If your hormones are out of balance, the liver isn't methylating because the job of the liver is to balance out estrogen, to balance your hormones out. So if my hormones are a wreck, that means my liver is a wreck. We got to look at the liver. We got to look at the colon because the colon's a mess, which causes the liver a mess. You got to clean the colon out. Most people have leaky guts, terrible leaky guts, where the proteins in the food leaks out of it and it goes into the immune system. And you have an autoimmune reaction and you have inflammation happening all over. And then you have all different people who have, there's different cancers for different reasons. Then you have somebody with a colon cancer or pancreatic. Well, why would you get a pancreatic cancer? Tell me what the pancreas does. I say to the patient, the job of the pancreas is to produce what? Insulin. The job of the pancreas is to produce and help produce pancreatic enzymes to break down the proteins that we eat. So what would happen again if I'm eating tons and tons of food? Where do we get our enzymes from? We get our enzymes from what? Raw foods. When you cook the food, you kill most of the enzymes. Without enzymes, you cannot live because that's what breaks your food down and carries it to your organs. And so there's a spark plug of life. And so now you have a man, usually it's men with colon, and a lot of men get pancreatic, sometimes women. But why? They're eating what? Steak and potatoes, meat. They don't eat any vegetables. They're getting no enzymes. Their body's producing all its enzymes, finally runs out. The pancreas is producing enzymes. It's working harder and harder. Now it's producing insulin, sugars, and grains, and pastas, and carbs. It's producing insulin. So your pancreas for years was producing enzymes, insulin. So just like if I keep damaging, what happens? It turns into protective cells. What happens? Pancreas turns into cancer, right? I can ask most pancreatic cancer patients, tell me about your acid reflux. Every time. 7 years ago, the acid reflux started, right? I can ask your colon cancer, what happened? Acid reflux. Why? Because they had no more enzymes left to break food down, so the body produced more HCLs and more acid to break foods down. And so now what do they take? Majority of them all took what? Antacids. So now they have no acid. So now they can't methylate properly. They can't detox. And now they can't break their food down. So now the food goes right into their gut and now sits there, petrifies, and inflames, and now creates colon cancer. I keep going on, but there is a pathway to every cancer. There's a pathway that created it. When I look at a history, it's about 150 questions, and I'll go back 9 years old, 8 years old from the antibiotics they had, which created a huge fungal infection, most of the time creating the sarcomas or the lung cancers and different, sometimes skin cancers. Amounts of antibiotics, destroying the guts, and I could go on and on, but it's in your history. It started when you were 9 or 10, even though you're 50 or 60 now. Sorry, we went an hour already. I don't know where time went.
Hey, time flies when we're having fun, right? I mean, this information is priceless, and you know, we've never spoke about the things that I've talked about throughout the beginning of Get to the Source, but you've probably mentioned everything that I've talked about at some point in extreme detail, and it's just reiterating to the viewers that we don't say this just to say it. The body works the way it works, and the damage that we're doing to our bodies is only going to perpetuate all of these things that are happening. And this entire talk has been about cancer, but if you put everything that you've mentioned, you know, about mindset and about changing your environment and about all of these things that you were saying to every area of their life, not just cancer, but obesity or diabetes or, you know, everything that you're in, it just makes total sense. Hoping people are going to see that it's all about your lifestyle and your environment. And once you change that, you could transform your life in any way. Now, is your patient there?
Yeah, Zay Zayed, are you here?
We have a little surprise for some of the viewers.
I'm going to come up in a little bit, but I have a patient who's here right now he was diagnosed at I mean he's doing all his treatments right now, but he was diagnosed with a sarcoma in his leg, and when you're under 18, you have to go through chemotherapy, radiation, went through surgery, and they did all that. They told me be okay, be okay, be okay. They spent, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and those of you see, you follow him on Facebook. He's one of the patients on there that is doing a lot of updates. But he finally, they told him there's nothing more we could do for you. He went home in hospice. They're waiting for him because that hospice is there right before you die. And that was almost 5 months ago. And he's here today. He's downstairs doing protocols. But there's always an answer. You know, there's always a way. Again, he doesn't have to kill it. He just has to stop making it. He just has to stop making the cancer. And you can slow it down, stop making it, change the environment, and that's where he's at right now. And he's here. He already did IV vitamin C today, IV selenium, different stuff, and now he's doing a positron electronic magnification frequency, high infrared, which is going to get his temperature around 103, 104 degrees, get your temperature at. So because cancer can't live it hates heat. It's one of the things that doesn't like oxygen. But it also it has what's called heat shock proteins, and it becomes very sensitive to heat. That's why at 103 and 104 degrees, that's why our body puts ourselves in fevers, because viruses die, bacteria die, infections can't live, funguses don't live as well, but cancer can't live in those high temperatures. That's what hyperthermia or hyperthermia is, or different treatments are, where they're raising your temperatures and cancer can't live. So if we get the temperature on 103, 104, as long as we can, keep you in a fever state, the cancer becomes very sensitive. At that point, we hit them with a rectal ozone, and that way the ozone, which is 3 parts oxygen, can get up into the bloodstream. It goes all the way through the bloodstream, and that ozone, oxygen, can hit that cancer and has the ability to stimulate the immune system to fight the cancer. Not cure it, nothing about curing it, but keeping his body stable. He's also doing other protocols. He'll also get adjusted immediately. He'll get adjusted, especially in his upper thoracic area and his mid back. We know the interleukin is raised. Interleukin is proven through research and studies that every time an adjustment is made, spinal adjustment is made in the right areas at the right time, interleukin 1 goes up. Interleukin is part of the immune system that fights cancer. And one of the best ways to raise it is through the nervous system the right way, adjusting. So we'll adjust the upper cervical, especially up in his back, his lymphatic area, to work with that. So he's adjusted on a regular basis. He goes through all the protocols. He does tons and tons of coffee enemas a day to detox the colon, but also to stimulate the liver to produce more glutathione, detox him, and also to help stimulate the immune system. He's doing high doses of enzymes and all different protocols. And that's, I mean, again, you're just getting your body back to health again. Not curing anything, you're getting yourself healthy again. What cancer goes or not, that has nothing to do with it. Let's just get you strong and healthy again. Whether cancer's in stage 1, stage 0, it's not that big of a deal.
Unbelievable. I mean, thank you. I mean, he's doing his protocols. I was hoping we'd be able to see him.
Maybe in a second, but yeah, he's still down there right now. So.
Hey, that's good.
I know he's very sweaty, so.
Well, that's all right. I mean, the fact that he's there, you know, at 8 o'clock at night your time, working his butt off to become healthy. That's what's going to make him better, and that's what sets him apart from other people that quote unquote succumb to the disease and think I have cancer, it's the end of my life. And changing that mindset, like you said, is number one, and understanding that we have control of everything, from the foods that we eat to the activities that we do to everything. And that's what really health is all about, is just setting yourself up and putting yourself in an environment that is proactive rather than reactive. So, I mean, Robert, do we have any other questions out there?
Yes, we have a couple here. So let's see. Laura wants to know, what books or research material did you first read to educate yourself?
Well, for me, I was at the first place I went with to Dr. Forsyth, Reno, Nevada, and but we researched him first. So just Googled like some of the top oncologists, natural, alternative, especially with my type of cancer. You have to watch, because if you're going to go to an alternative clinic, some are better than others. Just like regular, some are better at hormone versus a myeloma versus a lymphoma. Some are good at all of them. It just all depends on where you go. So I went there first, and the first week I was pretty much out of it. Second week, third week I started to get to learn a lot of the different protocols. But for me, just every book there is. Ty Bollinger's book, Cancer from Outside In. I just did a whole series with him. Ty Bollinger's books. There's just so much stuff out there. A lot of it is just Google. If you Google it like I did, I just would Google, natural cures myeloma. Whatever your cancer is, there are answers out there. I send, whenever I'm doing a consultation that night, I'll send them like 20 different people who reversed it and have their testimonials and the person going through it all. Because that is so powerful to read people's testimonials, to go, if they did it, then I can do it. If they did it, how come I can do it? I don't care if 99% of people didn't make it. Did one make it? If one made it, then I'll make it. And if one didn't make it, I'll be the first to make it. So it's just keeping yourself around that and searching for it. And then what I did is I took all the reading, all the books I did, because there's, like Dr. Marco said, there's so much out there. And so I took it all, put it all together, and that's what I created, the Cancer Killers. Because the problem was people would get, cancer. You watch a cancer patient, they have a 400-page book or 350 pages. They get through like 30 pages, they're lost, they're confused. So I took it down, narrowed it down to 100 pages, put it all together concisely so people could go through there. That's the easiest way for me.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody that read the book myself, if you're somebody that either knows somebody that has cancer, you yourself has cancer, or you just want to prevent cancer for yourself, this book touches every aspect of that. He gives foods, and he gives certain things that are going to help you prevent cancer rather than just waiting till you have it and then fighting it. So I highly recommend the book. I have his website right here on our thank you page right there. It's beacancerkiller.com.
Or it's also on Amazon.
Okay.
They want to get an immediate download of it and not wait for the book. They can go on Amazon. So iTunes may still have it. Sometimes Amazon will have to redo it, but usually it's on Amazon. You can order the book if you want an actual cover book, or you can go. Sometimes iTunes will have it too. It all depends on who's carrying it.
Yeah, I actually ended up getting it as an iBook, so I think I got it on iTunes.
Yeah.
So there's many avenues, and I bought it, just to say, hey, this looks like a good book. I don't know as much about cancer as I would like to, and like I said earlier, I mean, I believe I read this in 3 days because the information was so, first of all, easy to read, and second of all, very powerful. So, if we have any other questions out there, I'm more than willing to take it. But if not, we should probably start to wrap this up.
Yeah, we're done here on this end.
Okay, awesome. So, Robert, if you put up the thank you, I think it's there actually. Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Dr. Majors. I don't have his email there, but you can reach out to me and I can reach out to him if you want. Unless you want to share that, Dr. Majors.
Yeah, actually they can Facebook look for Charles Majors. and then they can message me on there at all times, even if they're not friend yet with me. There's I have 5,000 right now, so I'm trying to get rid of some friends. I have too many friends. No, but they can. Most people just message me on Facebook, message it, and I get it. Just look for Charles Majors. You'll see the pictures on there, and you'll know. So then you can get updates always. If you follow, you can get updates. I do a lot of cancer updates every week, twice a week.
Excellent. Yeah. So actually, on his actual name on the Facebook is Charles Majors DC, as in Dr. Chiropractic. So there may be other Charles Majors you see, but yeah, I mean that was absolutely unbelievable. More than what I expected. Dr. Majors, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and just to be able to share this information and so, intuitively, it's just in you. You could see it, and it's amazing to see. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Robert for your help. I want to thank the audience for being involved and asking questions. But I mean, I'm almost speechless right now. That was just amazing. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for doing this.
Hey, I appreciate all the support, and there'll be more to come soon.
All right, the new there's our website. It's beacancerkiller.com, and that is all updated. They can get on there, and they can get books. They can get updates. They can go on Be a Cancer Killer too.
Awesome.
Beacancerkiller.com. So.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, and have an excellent evening.
You too. Thanks.